was
All
the
right.
process? Did they just call up, or what was the deal?
Right. So, the touring company, all a good amount of them are friends from Broadway, So they've been on this for about 5 months, and I remember hearing that the person that was who took over my role, was going to be out for a second, and you kind of hear these whispers going around, but nothing official happens. But it was kind of on my mind, like, what if I go back and jump on the tour for a second? And then they notify the agents, and the agents know, they've been with me through the whole journey. And so we have a meeting. We're calling a special meeting. Everyone on, Justin. We're not telling you what it's about. I'm like, okay, I'm a little nervous.
I'm
And
in.
yeah, and we get together and they're like, you did this for a super long time. You've been doing other stuff now, but how would you feel about jumping onto the tour for a few weeks? And I think about it for a second, because when you're kind of building a career, you're kind of moving in different directions, and there's tons of other things that I'm kind of jumped for, but the opportunity arose and kind of reflected on, like, it's been so long. What would it be like to go back? What would it be like to do it with a new group of people, to share it with a new demographic of people? And going through all of that, it just seemed like it was immensely worth it. So,
Was it weird?
yeah, yeah. I mean, the thought of leading up to it was pretty weird because um, the show did so well before. I kind of had those nerves of, like, I just want to leave it, like it's a perfect little
It's a
beautiful little
yeah.
thing. Yeah, I don't want to mess with it. I don't want to mess with the legacy that was established and stuff. Um, but I was like, but also, what could I have to gain, like, from reconnecting with this character, and, like, a little bit older, a little bit different of a performer. Um, so all of that, is honestly still in development. I haven't started shows yet.
Did you remember the
So
lines, or is that like, oh my God, I got to read?
so I just had a really long rehearsal yesterday, and it would be like the beginning of the lines. I could, like, improv my way through the scene. I know what happens, but, like, were the correct words on the page coming out? Probably not. So I had to look through and kind of get reaccustomed. But within a few minutes, in 5 minutes, I was kind of back in it, which was sweet.
How was it being with different people?
Um, there's I have been spending a lot of time with the new Kimberly, Carolee, Carmela, because I was so
If
close
you
with
were
the
so
tour.
close, yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah. And when did you see the show?
I saw it, it was before the Tonys. It was like
Oh,
May before the Tonys. Yeah.
amazing. Oh, that's so sweet. Um, but yeah, we were so close. So along with the things that were, like, weird, kind of, I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this without Vicky, because we built it together, and personally we kind of were a rock for each other, and then of course the performance, like, the chemistry was just so strong. It was something that really, like, brought my performance. But I'm a big fan of Carolee Carmela, so I was very excited to get in with her. I'm, like, honored. I'm like, I get to kiss Carolee Carmelo. That's crazy. Like, who would have ever thought? I didn't see that in my life. But
Priorities. You have new priorities. That's what it is.
yeah. But we just kind of met yesterday, and we did all the scenes together, and she's just so inviting in my director, who I'm seeing for the first time in several months and working with again, which is also really weird but fun. Was like, the chemistry is just so quick and amazing, and she was like, I feel so humbled by the fact that you guys make this connection through the roles. And I was just elated, because you never know how the other person is going to be.
Sure.
Um, But now I'm just so excited to do shows with her. I think we already have a good start, and by the end of this, we're gonna have created our own kind of relationship and dynamic that I think is gonna be so cool.
How many weeks are you in?
I am in for 5 weeks.
Oh, wow. Well, after the show ended, then you were done with it. What was the game plan? Because you were supposed to go to college. What happened to that?
Right, right. So at that point, I had been in New York for 3 years. I, kind of had my own apartment and my own career going. So I was like, college will wait for now. In terms of experiences as an actor, there's still so much I haven't seen and done. I've done this great thing on Broadway, but I want to get out there and keep doing more. So after that, I kind of enrolled in my first like acting classes in New York with studios and my first workshops and like developmental work and auditioning a ton and auditioning for film and TV and theater. So the past 8 months has all been like an incredible journey of kind of learning about everything else about living as
Is
an
there
actor.
is there anybody who's a good kind of role model for you? Certainly, having been in the Jimmies, there are those who have kind of made that leap and done big things. I think of Andrew Barth Feldman, for example, who was like shot out of the cannon, just like you were with this.
Right.
Do you talk to those people and say, "Well, now what's the route I need to take?"
Right. So I get kind of, counsel and wisdom from people like Victoria Clark. Is able to tell me so much about getting used to like the life and the difficulties and the unemployment and all the things like that. But mentioning Andrew Barth Feldman, he's a very good friend of mine. We've become much closer after the show. We met when he came and saw me, and he liked my performance, so he like DM'd me and was like, "We gotta hang out." But those type of relationships with like people my age who are going through the same kind of like stresses of building a career in 2024, like what that means, and being this age. Um, yeah, so we get a lot of wisdom, I think, from each other in those sorts of experiences. I would say Andrew is definitely one of them. I've asked him a ton.
I would be worried that I would think, well, I got to have another hit play. I've got to do that. And how do you
Hmm.
deal with that? How do you say, no, you don't need that. You need
Right.
to do some other things.
Yeah. Well, so there's certainly an aspect of that. I'm pretty choosy with the jobs that I take, as in the contracts, long contracts. I've gotten auditions and offers for things that could have gone up, maybe in New York or somewhere else. But in weighing that with my team and with myself, there's a lot you gotta weigh in terms of like, okay, sure, we wanna get back on stage again, we wanna get back in the news, but where am I? What am I working on? Do I actually want to spend more time in classes or just have friends or going home? And then like where where do I want to go next and what I want people to see of me? Do I want to do something similar? Do I want to do something very different? So I have to make those kind of decisions as they come along, and that's been a big learning curve. But ultimately, I think I focus on like, um, is this like a story in a role that I actually want to do?
Sure.
Apart from the money, apart from the buzz, like what's actually going to be fulfilling? Because something I learned from Kimberly Akimbo is that this job can cost a lot. There's a lot that you're giving, and so the return has to be kind of like immensely worth it. And you come across shows like Kimberly Akimbo where it just is, and you kind of know that quickly. So I'm looking for a lot of those opportunities.
But what if you got into a show that was just a dud? And you're like, what do I do?
Right, right. To be honest, um, you look at, I think commercially it might be a dud, but what else can you gain from it, you know? Is this going to be something where I just meet amazing people? Is this going to be something where I do like a role that's like so weird and strange for me? I think that's kind of what I try to focus on.
Look for something else, something, some other benefit to the whole thing. Wait,
Absolutely.
because you had such a weird first experience, does that change anything in terms of, certainly we see that, all right, I would move to New York, I would audition for roles, I would maybe get a little role, I maybe then would get another role, but you were shot out of a cannon right away and it was a hit. I mean,
Mhm.
how does that
Right.
change your thinking about everything? How do you handle that?
Yeah. I think leaving the show, it felt like a little bit of a rug being pulled out under me because I had other auditions, but there is, right, like we talked about, such a precedence in my career already that um you kind of get the urge to like tiptoe around, like, oh, I don't know what I should do next, like what are people gonna think, like I know people are watching. um in ways, that's kind of a unique experience for people who go through something like I did, that can be pretty scary. So that's been something that I've been learning to navigate and kind of just find the peace with, like, um I regardless, kind of faith in the fact that, if people are watching, and if they're fans, they're gonna want to see me, and they're gonna want to believe in whatever
Sure.
I believe. So
How do
if
you
no
know
one,
who to trust?
mm, as in like,
Like if somebody says, "Oh, this is going to be great. You got to do this. This is good. This will be really good for your career. You should do it. You're going to love
mm,
it." You go, "I don't know. I'm not sure that that is."
I think that I've learned to trust the people who trust my intuition. I think the people that are able to provide me counsel, but, always say at the end of the day, but like, if you don't want to do this, if you don't feel right, then you can't. Or, oh, this show is, you know, people are saying it's going to be a dud, it's going to be, but you want to do it, then do it.
Do it.
Those sorts of people, I think, are the realest ones.
How does your family deal with your career? Because I'm assuming they're not in the business, right? So they don't have that perspective to say, "No, you can't do this," or "You shouldn't do this." So
Right.
how do they mess with it?
I talk to them a lot because it's actually kind of nice to get a perspective that's outside of it all, because they ask different questions,
Sure.
rather than asking about the box office or the playbill of it all. They're like, oh, well, like,
You give vacation.
yeah, do you have vacation? Like, how close is it to home? Things like that. Um, so I think we're all kind of learning that as a family, which is kind of interesting and fun. Another thing that I was thinking about, like, after the show was like, um, dealing with auditioning a ton because Kimberly Akimbo was my first professional audition that I sent out ever, and then I got it. So I had been working as a professional actor for like 3 years, but never done like the actual thing that professional actors
The
do,
hard
which is
work.
audition
Right.
tons of times. So I had to actually learn how to do that, like as an actor. And then I had to learn how to kind of put that into my schedule, being unemployed, what you find out and what you do with your day. So those are all things that I'm learning, and kind of my family coping with, like, okay, like our son like doesn't have a job and like that's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, yeah. But they've even come around, they listen, and they love to learn, so it's been a great journey for all of us.
Oh, that's okay. Now go back to the Jimmies, because to me that seems like a real breeding ground for future Broadway stars. But
Hmm.
didn't you have one of those kind of odd years where you didn't get to be with everybody?
the one odd year, the notorious 2021 virtual
What?
Jimmys.
So did you get any of the experience or not?
Um, I did. You know, it was something. I think the amazing thing about the Jimmys is that like because a lot of kids are coming from whatever all around the country, kind of for me, random Midwest, Kansas, it's like no matter what, it's a level up from you. Like suddenly I'm in front of like the biggest casting directors and working with
Sure.
Broadway actors, which is just it's nothing I would get back home or nothing that I could imagine that I would be doing. So I still gained a lot in that way, you know. And if you're taking it, I learned some self-tape skills because what was I doing? Performing my songs in my room in front of a green screen. So there were some things to gain from it. It's been really fun. I went to the Jimmys last summer for the first time, and I presented there, and it was so fun being like, even though I'm a Jimmy's finalist, like this is my first time at the Jimmys. Like, oh my gosh.
Did you think, oh, I would just hate this environment because it does seem real competitive, and it looks like, oh my God, they're out to stab you. That's what I would think.
To be honest, I think high schoolers put the most pressure on themselves. I felt pressurized and competitive even on, you know, but even virtually. But in fact, actually, I think being there, I think all these kids are lucky because there's actually more of a sense of camaraderie and like you're gaining something so unique out of it. Which I've been like slowly gaining over the past 3 years. I run into my fellow nominees and I'm like, I remember you over Zoom. So nice to actually meet you. So
Different
that's
in
been something that's been
person, right?
great. Right, yeah.
Well, okay, then do you keep in touch with the Kimberly Akimbo cast, the
Mhm.
original one, or did you guys like say, okay, goodbye, we'll see you around, and maybe we'll work together sometime?
Yeah, no, I think we all were pretty close and we all wished the best for each other. So, um, you know, Bonnie Milligan worked quite a lot this summer.
Titanic.
So yep, I went and saw her in Titanic. I saw my castmate Nina White in Queen of Versailles, which is a new show coming up. So we get around to each other. I still see you know, we all kind of still do that. I still ask them to help me film self-tapes. I still see them downtown. And you know, I went to Victoria Clark's house for Thanksgiving. We're
All
still
right.
very close. I hang out with her dog. Like, there's still a family, I think, for life, which I think is so important that I got that.
Was it good it happened this way, that this is the way your life is unfolding?
I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes. I mean, has it been so challenging? Yes. Um, you know, I think that it's kind of like a do or die situation. You have to do it. There's a lot of pressure, and it's kind of like a fold or rise. And it took a lot of investigation to do that. But on the other side, it's kind of like, well, you know, this is just my journey and the journey isn't over. Like I still am auditioning, I still am learning new things. I'm still not getting jobs. I'm still getting jobs. You know, so I think in a way as unorthodox as it was, I think everyone's journey is kind of unorthodox. Um,
What didn't you realize about the business though before you got in it?
So that would be everything. I really don't, I don't know where to begin. I mean, like, I didn't really know that, like, I didn't really process that people rehearse for like 6 to 8 hours a day, like as if it's like a normal job. Like, that's crazy to me. There's there's so much about kind of auditioning and like getting these relationships. I think I'm pretty lucky to have had a showing that like people ask me to audition sometimes. And you know, as competitive as it is, I think it's so hard to get a job as an actor that it actually flips around and becomes like not competitive because we're all kind of like, I've gone in for 80 things this year. Like I'm not gonna trip someone for this one, you
Right.
know? And so kind of having the downtime is like so surprising to me, of how there's really a general sense and relation about that.
So
And other things
like
that surprise me.
when you're not,
What?
what's the day like when you're not working?
Mm. Um, I it's weird because I think it's going to evolve just like over my entire life, and it already has because I'm now expecting these periods of unemployment and like what I'm gonna do in the next one. Right now, I took a lot of time to travel. I took a lot of time to like really like bring up my like social life, kind of get into a community in New York, which I feel as if I finally found. Um, I've been really studying in class, different types of things and lessons, um, because as much as I learned from Kimberly, there's like kind of an entire other side, I mean, there's so many sides. So there's things that I'm still uncovering. So it's almost like it's a work period of its own, actually.
So it's
Um,
like, oh my God, I got to watch General Hospital, or it's not like you do all these other little things that are,
Well, honestly, on one part, it's like I get to watch General Hospital. Yay! Like I get to just sit inside on my couch. Um, but yeah, I think for actors, you don't really look at the job as like the job. It's like your career is a constant job that just has different requirements. And so at first I was in the Broadway show part, and now I'm on the study, recover, learn, level up part.
I like that. I like it. That's great. One thing that I'm sure that they don't teach anywhere is how to sustain a long run. What is it like when you're in like the first year? You go, oh my God, this is not. I'm sure when you did shows before, they were maybe 2 weekends, and then you're out of it, and then it's done. But
Yeah.
to play a character for a long period of time, how is that?
So different. Yeah, and in terms of like things I learned, it's so rewarding in a way, because like you kind of sit in this character and you kind of like mind meld with this person for so long. You unlock a sense of freedom. Like I was with some of the most insane, silly actors and actresses like Ali Mazi on my toes all the time, Victoria Clark crying, screaming, crazy. She goes in so many places, and we're only allowed to do that because we have so many chances.
Right.
So there's no real idea of messing up because you try again. So that was incredibly rewarding. And then also the challenge of it. Things that surprised me were like, oh, sometimes you like wake up at 4 to do a morning show and then you still have two shows. That's really interesting to learn. Sometimes you record a cast album on your day off. Didn't know that about the industry. So that was a learning curve. And those types of things, I stumbled and fell and got back up over and over again. I got sick a ton. But all lessons that I feel I can now take forward with me.
Did you save anything from the show the first time? Is there anything that like a memento or a costume or something, and you go, this is my remembrance of that?
So anyone who's seen the show knows that like Seth has this necklace that's very special to him. I took that. I took that. It's at home and it's with me.
So it won't come back in the new version oh, it might. It could
Maybe it might be in my suitcase. Who knows?
be your good luck charm. There we go.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
has Seth changed then over this period of time?
Mm. So the interesting thing is, first off, being away from the show, not only for us, but for the creatives, for our director, um, is like kind of like a reset. Like you don't have the same things that you think have to be this way, or like what this show is. Um, and then having someone else take up the role, I think showed everyone so many different possibilities. After being in a long run for a long time, and you are just your own person, there's kind of a sphere that you move within. One because you're you, and then one because you've been doing it for so long, you have to maintain it. You got to keep it in a space that makes sense. And so coming back in rehearsal, it's been really interesting getting notes on things. I do it exactly the way I did on Broadway, and it's like, oh, let's not do it that way anymore. I actually don't think that's correct. And that's really exciting
Oh,
because I take this in and I'm like, you're right. I didn't know that there were places this story could still go. I didn't know that there were new things to be discovered. So Seth, I think, um, not to spoil too much, but I think he's become even more joyous, even more energetic, even more bouncy, even more unabashed, because we've realized that, that's his role in this play among kind of the underlying gloom and doom that kind of haunts the corners. Seth is just the one that's going to shout in the hallways, Elvish, to many people who he doesn't know, and he's going to smile about it. So that's kind of a fun energy that anyone who sees it again, I think, will get something a little different.
where do you think he wound up after the show? I'm sure you kind of visioned where would he be at this point.
You mean after the journey's end? Where
Right,
does Seth go?
right.
Um, I like to think so. Seth had no friends before, and he goes on this journey with Kim, and they have a ton of fun, and he does something unlike anything he's done. Eventually, Kim is gone, right? And that's devastating to him. But I think that she also unlocked like a certain amount of a different type of bravery in him, and an idea that he doesn't have to settle for,
Mm.
having no for being the good kid, for making everything okay, for being okay with everything. I think, and I like to think that the teen quartet still hangs out with him afterward.
Yes.
I know we must. But I think he starts living for himself a little bit more.
Ah,
Um, so I imagine it's a sweet story, and sometimes I imagine that he babysits baby Carmelita, in that is the second movie, the second musical,
it's got to
Seth and
happen, right?
Carmelita. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's so well. Hey, thank you so much. I'm so glad you're back because you were the spark for me. I just really appreciated your performance in this show because it was so. And please don't take this the wrong way. It was so different, and he was somebody that you just wanted to hug because you wanted to say things are going to be okay. You're going to be all right, and
That
it was
I
great.
think I think we're all in a little different, and we all want to be hugged and told things are going to be okay. So I'm glad to show that,
Well, stay on that great adventure. It's time, right?
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you
so
so much,
much.
Justin. I appreciate it.
Have a good one, Bruce.